The last bell of the evening class had echoed through the lecture hall hours ago, yet Daniel remained on campus, hunched against the biting wind that swept across the nearly empty courtyard. The glow from the library windows flickered behind him, casting long shadows on the pavement. His phone buzzed in his hand, but it was only a notification from a group chat, no message from Ryan, his boyfriend, who had promised to check in. Daniel sighed, shifting his backpack on his shoulder as the weight of the day settled over him. When the rumble of the last campus bus dwindled in the distance, realization struck with cruel clarity. He had missed it. The stop sign at the edge of the lot now looked like a mocking monument to his forgetfulness. Home was far too distant to walk, and ride-sharing apps were out of his budget. He typed a quick message to Ryan, missed the bus. Stuck here. You up? And waited, staring at the dimly lit screen. The minutes dragged with no reply. That was when a familiar voice interrupted the quiet. Daniel? Still here at this hour? He turned, startled, to find Professor Hale standing a few steps away. The man's tailored coat framed his tall figure, his posture as assured as it was inside the classroom. His dark hair, streaked with hints of silver, gleamed under the street lamp, and his eyes, sharp yet kind, regarded Daniel with curiosity. I missed the bus, Daniel admitted, embarrassed, and I don't really know what else to do. Professor Hale tilted his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. That's unfortunate. You can't exactly camp out in the courtyard all night. His tone was light, but his gaze lingered. Where do you live? Across town, Daniel said quickly. It's pretty far. The professor nodded thoughtfully. A pause stretched between them, filled only by the wind rustling the trees. Then he gestured toward the parking lot. Well, I can give you a ride. I'm heading that way anyway. No sense in freezing out here. Daniel hesitated. It wasn't unusual for Hale to show concern. He was known for his attentiveness, the kind of professor who noticed when students were struggling. But something in the offer, gentle, direct, without expectation, made Daniel's chest tighten. He thought of Ryan again, of the unread message, and felt a flicker of unease. Still, he nodded. Thanks, Professor. I'd really appreciate it. The walk to the car was short, yet Daniel felt each step keenly, his pulse thrumming with a strange awareness. The professor's sedan gleamed under the overhead light, meticulously clean, the leather seats carrying the faint scent of cedar. When Hale started the engine, the warmth filled the cabin quickly, chasing away the chill. For the first few minutes, their conversation was ordinary class discussions, assignments, the upcoming exam schedule. But gradually, silence slipped in, heavy but not uncomfortable. Daniel found himself sneaking glances at Hale's steady hands on the steering wheel, the calm way he maneuvered through the empty streets. As they neared the residential district, Hale spoke again. You know, my place is just a few blocks from here. Why don't we stop for a bit? It's late, and you could use something warm before I drop you home. The suggestion was casual, almost offhand, yet Daniel heard the invitation beneath it, quiet but insistent. His throat tightened. He should refuse, insist on going straight home, but Ryan still hadn't replied, and the thought of returning to a dark, empty apartment gnawed at him. He forced a smile. If it's not too much trouble. Not at all. Hale's voice was smooth, reassuring. It's no trouble at all. The car turned down a quiet street lined with neat houses, each window glowing softly against the night. Daniel's nerves buzzed with a mixture of gratitude and anticipation he couldn't quite name. He watched as the professor pulled into a driveway, the porch light flickering to life as if expecting them. When the engine cut off, silence returned, thicker than before. Daniel followed Hale up the path, the crunch of gravel underfoot marking each step. The house loomed modest, yet elegant, its interior light spilling out in warm tones. The professor unlocked the door, holding it open with a small, inviting gesture. Daniel crossed the threshold, the air inside instantly wrapping him in comfort. Behind him, the door clicked shut, sealing them in together. The warmth of Professor Hale's house enveloped Daniel as soon as he stepped inside. The faint scent of sandalwood drifted through the air, subtle yet grounding, while soft amber lighting bathed the living room in calm hues. Shelves lined with books stretched across one wall, their spines neatly arranged, punctuated by a few framed photographs and scattered artifacts from travels Daniel could only guess at. The space felt curated, yet lived in, a mirror of the man who had invited him in. "Make yourself comfortable," Hale said, setting his keys on the polished oak table near the door. "I'll put on some tea." Daniel sank onto the sofa, running his hands over the fabric, his backpack resting awkwardly at his feet. He felt both out of place and strangely welcome, as if he had stepped into a private world few students ever saw. From the adjoining kitchen came the sound of boiling water, the faint clink of cups. The house's quiet made every small sound significant, drawing Daniel's attention inward. When Hale returned, he carried 2 steaming mugs. He handed one to Daniel, their fingers brushing lightly during the exchange. Daniel swallowed hard, unsure if the quick rush in his chest came from the heat of the cup or from something else entirely. "Thank you," he murmured. Hale sat at the other end of the sofa, angled toward him, his posture relaxed yet attentive. "You look exhausted," he observed. "Long day?" Daniel nodded, sipping carefully. "Lectures, assignments, lab work. It all piles up." He hesitated, then added, "Ryan usually helps keep me grounded," but his words trailed, leaving the name hanging in the air. "Your boyfriend," Hale said gently, as if confirming something already known. "Yes," Daniel admitted, eyes lowering. "But lately it feels like we're out of sync. He's always busy, distracted. Tonight, he didn't even answer when I needed him." The confession slipped out more easily than Daniel expected, as though the quiet room itself encouraged honesty. Hale didn't respond right away. He studied Daniel with a calm intensity, his gaze neither judgmental nor prying. "Relationships take effort," Hale said at last, "but sometimes even effort isn't enough if the other person isn't meeting you halfway." His voice was steady, but beneath it lay an undercurrent of something more, experience, maybe even regret. Daniel looked at him, caught by the sincerity in his tone. "Have you been through that?" Hale's lips curved in a faint, wistful smile. "I know what it's like to feel unseen, to give and not receive. It leaves an emptiness you try to ignore." He paused, eyes meeting Daniel's. "But it's difficult to ignore when someone finally notices you." The words lingered between them, heavy with implication. Daniel's pulse quickened, his thoughts torn between recognition and denial. He set his cup down, suddenly aware of the space shrinking between them. Their conversation faltered, replaced by silences that felt charged rather than awkward. Hale leaned forward slightly, resting his arm along the back of the sofa, his presence steady but not imposing. Daniel could feel the warmth radiating from him, a nearness that stirred something deep inside. He shifted, his knees brushing Hale's leg. The contact was accidental, yet neither moved away. Instead, the pause lengthened, and Daniel's breath came shallow. "You don't have to talk about it if you'd rather not," Hale said softly, though his eyes betrayed a deeper curiosity. Daniel shook his head. "No, it's nice to talk. I don't think I've said half these things out loud before." Sometimes the right company makes all the difference. Hale's voice dropped, intimate in its simplicity. Daniel's gaze flickered to Hale's lips before he caught himself. A flush rose in his cheeks, but the thought had already taken root. He felt the weight of choice pressing against him, the invisible line that once crossed could never be undone. The silence stretched again, but this time it pulsed with possibility. Hale's hand moved slightly, resting closer to Daniel's on the cushion. Their fingers didn't quite touch, yet the gap seemed to hum with energy. Daniel's heart pounded. He thought of Ryan, distant and unreachable, then of Hale, present and attentive. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt truly seen. Hale leaned closer, just enough that Daniel could feel the whisper of his breath. The world narrowed to the space between them, fragile and dangerous. Neither spoke, neither pulled away. The silence between Daniel and Professor Hale deepened until it became a living presence, pressing against both of them with undeniable weight. Daniel's chest rose and fell rapidly, his heartbeat loud in his own ears. He should have stood, thanked Hale for his kindness, and asked to be driven home. Yet his body betrayed him, rooted to the sofa, caught in the orbit of a man who seemed to see every thought written across his face. Then it happened, tentative searching. Hale's lips brushed against Daniel's, featherlight, testing the ground between restraint and surrender. For an instant Daniel froze, his mind screaming with the memory of Ryan's touch, Ryan's laugh, Ryan's promises. But the warmth of Hale's mouth was here, now, insistent in its gentleness. And Daniel, trembling, did not move away. The kiss deepened slowly, as if both men were afraid to shatter the fragile spell. Hale's hand lifted, resting against Daniel's cheek, steady and deliberate. Daniel felt the roughness of his palm, the steadiness of his touch, and something inside him gave way. Weeks of doubt of feeling unseen collapsed into the dangerous relief of being wanted. The world around them narrowed to textures and sounds. The faint ticking of a clock on the wall, the soft rustle of clothing, the sharp inhale when Daniel's fingers finally gripped Hale's sleeve. They pulled closer, drawn by a current neither could resist, their restraint dissolving in measured increments. And yet, even in the fire of the moment, guilt gnawed at Daniel. Ryan's face flashed in his mind, his boyfriend, waiting at home, unaware of this betrayal taking root in the quiet of another man's living room. The weight of that truth coiled in his chest, but he did not stop. Desire overruled reason, and the need to feel chosen seen consumed him. When at last they broke apart, breathless, the silence returned, different now, heavier with consequence. Daniel leaned back slightly, avoiding Hale's eyes. His lips tingled, his heart thundered, but shame seeped in like a shadow. "I shouldn't have," he began, voice cracking. Hale interrupted gently. "You don't have to explain. Sometimes moments happen because they need to." His tone carried no triumph, no gloating, only quiet resignation, as though he too understood the cost. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. "It still feels like crossing a line." "It is a line," Hale admitted. His gaze softened, almost apologetic, but perhaps it's one you needed to know existed. The words settled uneasily within Daniel. He wanted to protest, to push the responsibility back, but he couldn't deny the truth in them. The line had been crossed, and there was no uncrossing it. Hale rose first, walking toward the window. The movement broke the tension enough for Daniel to gather his backpack, fumbling with the strap as if grounding himself in something familiar. Hale turned back, his expression unreadable, then gestured toward the door. "Let me take you home." The drive was quieter than the journey there, the earlier warmth replaced by a silence layered with unspoken thoughts. Streetlights flashed across Daniel's face, illuminating his conflicted expression before plunging it into shadow again. He stared out the window, watching the city pass, each block pulling him closer to the reality waiting at his apartment. At last the car slowed to a stop outside his building. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, the screen glowing with Ryan's name. A message blinked up at him. "Did you make it home safe?" The irony hit him like a blow. Ryan's concern, delayed yet genuine, clashed with the secret Daniel now carried like a hidden scar. He didn't respond immediately, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Daniel," Hale said softly from the driver's seat. "Take care of yourself." Daniel nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "Thank you for the ride. For everything." He stepped out, the night air sharp against his skin. The car's headlights cut through the darkness as Hale drove away, leaving Daniel standing on the curb, the weight of choice pressing down on him. Inside his pocket, his phone vibrated again, Ryan's name glowing insistently. Daniel inhaled deeply, torn between truth and silence. Then, with trembling fingers, he typed back only 2 words, "I'm home." The lie tasted bitter even as he hit send. The apartment door clicked shut behind Daniel, sealing him inside a silence that felt heavier than the night air outside. He leaned against the wood for a moment, his breath uneven, his body still humming with the heat of what had just transpired. The room looked exactly as he had left it, scattered notes on the desk, half-empty mug on the counter, the faint hum of the refrigerator. Yet nothing about it felt familiar. His phone vibrated again, Ryan's name glowing across the screen. Daniel swallowed, sliding the device into his pocket instead of answering. He didn't trust his voice, not with the lingering taste of Hale's kiss still on his lips. He dropped his backpack onto the chair and collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. The guilt pressed hard, like a weight on his chest, each memory of Hale's touch cutting deeper. And yet, threaded through the shame, there was an undeniable pull, a spark of exhilaration he couldn't silence. When Ryan's key turned in the lock, Daniel's heart lurched. He hadn't expected him back so soon. Ryan stepped in, his presence casual, unburdened, as if nothing had shifted in the hours apart. "Hey," Ryan said, setting his bag down. "I saw your text. Sorry I didn't reply earlier, work was insane." Daniel forced a smile, though his lips trembled. "It's fine. I got home." Ryan crossed the room, brushing a quick kiss against Daniel's temple before flopping onto the sofa beside him. "Rough night?" Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to confess, to spill the truth before it grew into something monstrous, but the words stuck. He nodded instead, eyes fixed on the floor. "Yeah, missed the bus. Professor Hale gave me a ride." Ryan chuckled softly. "That was lucky. Saves you from freezing." "Yeah," Daniel echoed, his voice thin. Ryan didn't notice the crack in his tone, already scrolling through his phone, half engaged. The familiar distance between them settled back into place, and Daniel felt the ache sharpen. The warmth he had found at Hale's house, the way every glance felt intentional, meaningful, it contrasted too starkly with his distracted comfort. Later, when Ryan drifted into the bedroom, Daniel lingered in the living room, staring at the city lights beyond the window. His mind replayed the evening in fragments. Hale's voice steady and low, the brush of his hand, the way silence had carried more weight than words. Each memory pulled him deeper into conflict, torn between loyalty and desire. His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Ryan. The screen lit with a new message. "Did you get home safe?" It was Hale. Daniel hesitated, his thumb hovering. The sensible choice was to ignore it, to let the night dissolve into secrecy. But his pulse quickened, and before he could think, he typed back, "Yes, thank you." Almost instantly, a reply appeared. "I'm glad. Get some rest, Daniel." The simplicity of the message cut sharper than any declaration. It was the quiet acknowledgement of connection, a thread tying them together despite the wrongness of it all. Daniel placed the phone face down on the table, but the glow of the screen seemed to linger in the room. He leaned back, closing his eyes, caught in the web of two lives pulling at him from opposite directions. In the darkness, Ryan's voice called faintly from the bedroom, asking if he was coming to bed. Daniel answered, his voice steady though his chest burned. "In a minute." Alone, he whispered to himself, as if testing the truth of the words. "I crossed a line." The admission hung in the air, soft and damning. He knew the night had changed everything, even if Ryan never found out. And deep down, he also knew this was not the end of it.